I'm Jody, the mom,
And I'm Dr. Bahr, the doc.
and this is Mom and Doc Talk, where we talk all things healing pans and pandas.
We bring together the mom experience and the doc expertise to give you the information and tools you need to help make the next right decision to get your child back.
Let's dive in.
Hi, and welcome back to Mom and Doc Talk. We are here, just me and Jody today, to talk to you about something that we've known we need to talk about this for a while, and we haven't wanted to talk about it because it's a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah, I think there's two different sides to it. And
Let's say what we're talking about first. We're talking
okay,
about
go.
screens, talking about screen time. And yes, there are two different sides to it, which is why we've put it off for so long, but we just can't keep putting it off.
Yeah, I think my biggest fear is that I don't want to make anyone that's in the throes of it think that we're coming at them. Because if
Yeah.
I would have watched this video when Avery was at her worst, and one of her worst symptoms was not, I don't even know if it was a symptom, it was a coping mechanism, was grabbing a screen and needing to be on that screen for very long periods of time. If I would have had somebody come and talk, I would have listened to somebody talk about screen time and the dangers of it. I would have been like, you're just trying to make me feel like crap right now. And there's like no way that I can avoid this. Like I just can't. And had I had pans to do all over again, I probably still would have done it the exact same way. But then after coming out of pans and living some life pans free with screens and seeing some of that stuff, there's also another side of it. And I think that that's the main thing that we want to talk about today. Make what I'm saying make sense. I'm rambling.
Yeah. To come off right away, we're not coming off with like a screens are all good, screens are all bad. We are talking about the messy middle, right? Like the reality that there is nuance to this. And um we also see enough people who've reached a point, as Jody was trying to say with the second part of their healing process, that screens are no longer a symptom, but an obstacle. And so we just need to talk about it because it comes up enough that people have asked us to talk about it, to give the nuanced take from both a mom and a doc perspective, and the ways that it can impact healing with homeopathy or any other healing modality for that matter, or non-healing modality, but even
Yeah,
suppressive modality,
life.
right? Like period, how it can affect us. Um, and I think that we need to like start with the understanding that screens are not all bad, right? And even if we wanted to take that viewpoint, which some people do, that screens are just all bad. I am not one of those people. I see nuance to it. I'm also living in the acceptance that in my life, in the life that my family lives, they're unavoidable.
Mhm.
I can be selective about how we use them, but they are unavoidable. It's
Yeah.
much like when we talk about people with EMF sensitivity, which, plays a role for some people with screens too, right? Um, there's only so much you can do about it, right? And, like for instance, I'm pretty sure my daughter is going to get a screen. But by the time this airs, my daughter might already have a screen. So we're recording this before she goes into kindergarten, but I'm pretty sure she's getting a screen for kindergarten. Um, so it's my choice. I can't necessarily avoid that unless I wanted to choose to take her out of her public school and put her into a school specifically to avoid screens. And even that, I mean, Jody, you have like a partial homeschool private school situation. Can you avoid screens in your
Mhm.
situation?
No,
Um,
not at all.
yeah. So it's the world that we live in. So we are not here to tell you get rid of your screens completely necessarily. Okay.
Mm.
Um, what we do want to talk about is we see you when screens are a vital part of sanity in your home. If you are a family who the only relief that you and your child gets is when they have a screen in front of them, you are well, you got lots of company. You got lots of company. Um, and when we're in that place, it can be a symptom, right? It's and it's a tool that you use because I mean, can you imagine having absolutely no opportunities for relief when you're dealing with the pans flares from hell and you're not getting answers, you're not getting breaks, and you're barely sleeping because any free moment that you've got, you're on a screen looking for answers, and like you're on the brink because you are so exhausted and so depleted that like if you don't stick a screen in front of your kid's face, you're going to do something or say something that you regret. In that
Yeah.
case, it is vital. Like if
Yeah.
you are potentially going to, if you need that to give yourself a break and to give your child a break, I think that's a vital use and that's a vital tool.
Yeah. Oh, it was necessary. I was pretty hardcore about limited screen time before pans happened.
Mhm.
And that just it was my only reprieve, like just to get a minute to breathe. And it was like the only time where Avery was not just miserable. It was like a break for her too.
Yeah. I
But
think,
over time,
yeah.
shifted.
And that's what we need to look at is we need to look at the varying different ways of like susceptibility, ways that people are engaging and interacting with screens, which screens we're using. And we do need to acknowledge that there are some people who are more susceptible to the risks with screens than others. And that even to the point that we've had some case examples in our practice and case examples that I've seen presented at a conference of people who reversed their autism diagnosis by removing screens. Um, and these were extreme examples. This is not what I would expect to see for most people, but it does happen. Okay. Um, so things to think about with screens. And Jody, tell me where, like this, some of the stuff that you thought about with this. So like a lot of the evidence that I have seen presented and read about with screens, the smaller the screen, the bigger the problem. And so if you're using an iPhone or an Android phone or whatever, a phone is a bigger problem than a tablet, which is a bigger or a phone is a bigger problem than a tablet, and a tablet is a bigger problem than a TV, right? So like a TV is not directly in front of you. You're not doing as much actively engaging with. You're passively watching something, but you're not actively engaging with it. It's going to have some dopamine feeding, but not in the same way as like a game or something on the internet. So and the TV, you're more likely to be able to engage with others around you. So you have like that social interaction and that like human to human connection versus just human to screen connection. The smaller it gets, the less engagement you have with the people around you, and the more you're likely to be doing things that are more of like the interactive, in some ways designed to like ramp up your dopamine and like cause some dysregulation in your neurotransmitters, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And your hormones, right? Because it also dysregulates your sleep. Like the bigger screens are less problematic for disruptions to sleep. Because I mean, most people know, oh, I think most people know this. So like the light from your screen, it tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. And so your body doesn't produce melatonin when it's supposed to help you get to sleep. And even when it starts to make melatonin, if you've been looking at these small screens, it's like cut down by like 50% the amount of melatonin that's produced after small screen use. Not the same impacts from big screens that you have from small screens, right? Um,
I feel like I'm learning something here. I didn't know this, but it makes so much sense. I didn't know about like the smaller screens.
yeah,
Makes
yeah.
sense.
And like in one of the case examples that has been shared in our office, like the screen, like the screens that changed, like brought speech about by eliminating screens were the small screens. They still were able to use like TVs, like big screens, that kind of thing. Um, the small screens also are usually connected to the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so another thing that has been presented is the risks for what you can have access to and the addictions that can come about in young children because of the things that they have access to, and the ways it can contribute to dysregulation of their body, their feelings of safety, their actual safety in some cases, depending on what it is that they're accessing,
Mhm.
um, and can lead to some secondary addictions beyond just the screen addiction
Yeah.
itself. Um, and some of these things that kids can get their hands on because of just what is available on the internet, sometimes even with good parent controls, that like kids are smart and they find ways around, and you know, um, it can be challenging to kids because they don't know how to handle the adult content of one type or another that they are accessing. And then it can increase feelings of isolation because of how they're feeling about the things and the fears and all of the things that can come into it. So, um, these are just things to consider too. Like the smaller the screen, the more likely you have access to those things, even with parent controls. Um, Even things like video game screens. Like I'm not a video game person. I never have been. I'm like if I were to ever do it, I told my husband, who is also not a video game person, but he's got friends who are. I told him that if I were to ever do like a live stream video game situation on like one of those platforms that does that I would be like the blooper reel, or I would be like the one that you just go to laugh at how ridiculous I am, because I can't jump without jumping. Like I'm just not wired that way. Um anyway, so I'm not a video game person, never have been. So this is from my understanding, from what people have told me, that even like the little Switch games or whatever, those are connected to the internet, and like even though you think that you're just going and like playing games, that there are ways that you can access things that you don't expect to be able to access from like handheld video game consoles.
Yeah. I feel like my family is like a study over years and years and years of all of this. Like if someone were to have been watching us with a video camera, there's like this whole story that has been told about the internet. And if we're ready to just dive on into it, like it's really like the thing that I wish that somebody would have told me when Avery was in the middle of her healing journey was that at some point I needed to shift things.
Mhm.
At some point, she had gotten enough relief where I could start pulling back on some of that screen time. Now, I was afraid to do that because I didn't want to rock the boat. I wanted to just keep things easy and simple. But there was this period of time where I think that she was doing well enough and I needed to start doing that pulling back, but I didn't because it was easier for me. But listening to you talk about how it can potentially be an obstacle, 100% understand that because I've done that. Like I've done that study outside of PANS, like Avery being completely recovered. I am the most guilty of it and will be really vulnerable in like today life where
Mhm.
my kids are doing well and we go through periods where we just get a little too lax with the rules. We let them play too much computer, let them spend too much time doing whatever it is that they're doing. And then all of a sudden, we have behavioral problems, we have sleep issues, we have fighting sisters, we have children that aren't normally rude and disrespectful, starting to be rude and disrespectful. And every time I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, we are not in control. The remedy's not working, or whatever it might be. And then I'm like, oh gosh, we've gone a little too far with the screens and we need to pull back. And I like recently did this probably about 3, 4 months ago. And sitting in what I've created is really hard because I'm now seeing what addiction looks like. And so I'm seeing two things. When I take away the screens, when I take away YouTube, number one, um, behavior changes. It goes back to not being so rough.
Yeah.
Um, my children start playing with each other instead of just looking at a screen.
Mhm.
I am seeing less disrespectful behavior. I am seeing less anxiety because I do believe that screens cause anxiety in one of my children. But also at the same time, I'm seeing the effort that they put forth into trying to get those screens back. And that's the addiction part of it. And
Mhm.
that's really hard to see. It's hard for me to admit that I allowed it to get that far. But I mean, there's great links that my kids will go to try and get their screens back or trick me into getting their screens back. And it's so interesting because, we don't have PANS symptoms, but man, we got symptoms that sort of look like PANS when we're on screens too much. And I take away those screens, and each time it's happened, take away those screens, and those symptoms go away. I call them
Mhm.
symptoms. It's symptoms of addiction, I
Mhm.
think. Parts of it. But it's I feel like screens are the enemy that we are fighting, and we are always going to be fighting. As long as I'm raising children, I am going to be fighting screens. And in fact, as an adult, that's also the enemy that I'm fighting.
Yes.
It's like it's so it's so crazy to me because how similar the behavior that screens produce is to hands. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's not that surprising because of the ways it dysregulates our neurotransmitters and our hormones, and the fact that, like, everything on, especially these smaller screens, is designed to keep us on it.
Hmm.
That's how they make money, is by keeping us on it,
Hmm.
right? Um, and so there's a lot of effort that has gone into creating addiction
Hmm.
with all of the things that are available on those screens, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, like, it's like the thing that we're all going to have to deal with. You know, if we allow screens in our house at all, it's a thing that we all have to deal with at this age and stage in the human trajectory, right?
Yeah.
Because they are a necessary component. I don't even know if you can buy a phone anymore that doesn't have, like, I mean, you can, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
And then you have to, like, there's a lot of things, a lot of workarounds you have to do to not have a screen. Like, you have to work really hard to not have screens in your life, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just about recognizing and choosing how we interact with screens, right? So Jody, um, I'm curious if you can share from the mom perspective where you saw, now in retrospect, where did you see that transition from it being a symptom of the dysregulation and something homeopathy was able to help with? Because we did have, with homeopathy,
Hmm.
we were able to reduce the screen need.
Yeah.
um, where did it transition from a symptom of PANS that homeopathy was able to help with, to an obstacle and an addiction? What did do you is there Was there any clarity for you with that?
It was somewhere in the messy middle.
Hmm.
I don't know where. And the only thing that gave me clarity was probably one day when I got pissed off and I was like, all right, this is enough. I
Yeah.
was I was tired of fighting about screens, and I just was like, all right, I'm gonna make this decision and sit in this discomfort
Mhm.
because I know that Avery can handle some discipline and some structure and some boundaries. So we're gonna do this. And we're not watching YouTube anymore because for some reason for my kids, it's that YouTube scrolling that gets them so much.
Most
We're,
kids.
we're taking away YouTube and we are setting time limits on screen time and we drastically reduce. And I was astonished at what I thought was still some rough pan stuff was connected to screens. And that's the only way that I realized was stopping and or not stopping, but drastically slowing down, having better boundaries. And as we did that, like the shift happens, and this has happened even after pans. They go back to interacting with each other. They go back to being creative, making up stories, playing with things in their environment, um, having play dates, all of those things. It was to me, it was very eye-opening to have those boundaries, then get some weeks out and especially like months out. And it was like, oh, okay, maybe our anxiety wasn't that bad. Maybe our being retracted and not interacting with others was more about screens than it was about pans.
Mhm.
And so I encourage anybody that's in that space, that messy middle space, and things are going a little bit better to start to implement some boundaries and start to like slowly shift into that because it was not until I was like, okay, we're doing this that I was
Mhm.
like, oh, hey, screens were a part of the problem.
Yeah. And the earlier you start to make some good boundaries around screens, the easier it's going to be because as Jody was just describing, like you dealt with like withdrawal symptoms.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in my youngest. Oh, it's bad. And you know what's crazy is she's on a little screen, the littlest. And hers is, I mean, like I was like almost in tears a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, she is like I see her frantically fighting for dopamine is what I feel like I see.
Mhm.
And like and she's my dopamine seeking child.
Mhm.
Um in like doing what she can to find that sensory overload and the dopamine and she's not getting it. And so she's really extra grumbly. So in the beginning it's almost worse because she's mad and she's irritated. But then all of a sudden we're outside and we're swinging on the swing and we're hitting the volleyball again and we're doing all of the things that kids should be doing. And I'm sitting in the living room and I hear laughter coming from big sister's room because they're in there just goofing around and doing stuff together. And it's like this is the most obvious comment I've ever made, but screens destroy connections. And
and look, we're saying this to you from a screen, and we know that you're listening to it or watching it from a screen. So it's about being selective in how you use them, right?
yeah,
So like um because and that's this is where like I am not a person of extremes and like I this is where
mhm,
I will not do this. There is truth in both sides. There is value in it, and it is something that we need to be careful with, right? And be um use judiciously when we have the capacity to use judiciously and just make choices based off of what we see in ourselves and our kids because um if it weren't for screens, you know, Jody, you and I would not be connected. Like we do not live in a
yeah,
place that we would ever have crossed each other's paths. And there's a lot of parents who would not find the solutions that they need for their kids if it weren't for their screens. So there is a lot of value that comes from it. And connecting with a person and having a conversation on a screen or learning about something on a screen is very different than scrolling on a screen
yeah,
or playing a game on a screen. And like we need to acknowledge the games too. There are some kids that like that's the way they connect with their friends outside of school is
yeah.
on
That's
the
what makes it
games.
hard.
Yeah. And like and I don't have the good answer. I don't. I wish that I did. So like this is a I wish this was a podcast where you're like, here's the answer, here's how to deal with this.
Hmm.
And it's just we don't have it because you have to find what works for your family and for your kid. Um, and for some people, that's okay. And for others, it's just not.
Yeah.
Um, I know I'm one of those people. It is not good for me. Like
Yeah.
I am so susceptible. Like if I, especially like the things that are more dopamine driven, because I'm the dopamine seeker, right? Um, I, if I'm getting on something that is designed to drive dopamine, I will lose hours of my time. I will
Mhm.
not sleep. I will like get irritable and be impatient and like not connecting or engaging with anybody around me. I am just looking at the screen. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I'm even so sensitive to this. And like, this is one of the few things I don't think I'm a very sensitive person, but like, I'm sensitive to this. If I'm watching, if I watch anything on my screen at night, especially the small screens are the worst. The TV is not great, but it is better. Small screens are the absolute worst. If I'm watching something on my screen, if I'm scrolling like TikTok or Instagram Reels or something like that, that is the worst for me. If I am watching like a Bravo show, which art is meant to drive dopamine with the way that they do it, but it's not as engaging, I'm better.
Mhm.
I won't lose hours and I will eventually get to sleep.
Yeah.
Even if I'm reading on a screen in like dark mode with like the night settings on, I will still have a harder time going to sleep than if I just read a book
Yeah.
or like my old school Kindle without a backlit. So I know I'm sensitive to this. So maybe that's a way that you could look at it too. Like look at yourself and how sensitive and how easy it is for you to set your screen down and move away. And however it is for you, there's a good chance it's going to be like that for your kid too.
Yeah. I think this is all such a valuable conversation though, because when you mentioned it a week or so ago to me, it just didn't ever dawn on me that at the time before I did that whole we're gonna have boundaries and do something different. That's funny. I'm getting an email from the school right now about a dangerous trend on screens. That's so
Oh,
funny
how
that that
timely.
popped up right then, right? But I didn't consider it as potentially being an obstacle to my child healing. And that's like, I think the most valuable part of it is if I didn't think about it, there's probably a whole lot of moms that might not be thinking about the fact that certain symptoms can be coming from addiction to screens or even overuse of screens. And I think that like just having that conversation and if you know if your kid's got certain struggles, try pulling back and seeing if that changes anything, if it switches something. Because again, I went for an embarrassingly long amount of time being convinced that homeopathy just needed to fix everything. And and this is one of those things, like I even still do it, even in our most recent thing. My kid's got anxiety, and why isn't homeopathy fixing it? Well, you know what? Whenever I pulled back on the screens, all of a sudden the anxiety is better. And I just don't like I didn't think about it then, and sometimes I still don't think about it now. And
Yeah.
it's so impactful on their brains. And it's like you were saying earlier too, this could be a whole nother episode, but we don't even need to talk about it, is the stinking dangers, like the scary stuff out there. Like my kid on this site where she's making up these stories and AI is helping making like these beautiful, amazing stories. And she loves writing stories and telling stories. But then I just coincidentally run across an article talking about the amount of pornography on the specific site that she uses and how AI can switch into making the story something that a sweet little 14-year-old girl shouldn't hear. It's the chat groups and roadblocks and all of that, like all of those little things. And I have all kinds of stuff set up to keep an eye on my kids. And it's just, there's so many dangers. And it just,
Yeah.
I think in too large of quantities, it makes our kids' brains sick.
Yeah. So maybe we should just end with where we're at and what we're working on with our kids and ourselves for screens,
Mhm.
just as possible starting points for people who are at like seeing some truth in this, but saying, but what do I do and how do I do this? Mine is going to be less useful because I started early. My kid does not have PANS yet, and knock wood, hopefully never will. Um, but because she is susceptible to it with my history, I am very careful about these things. And so I've been intentional about a lot of things. So my daughter didn't get any screens in her life until she was 19 or 20 months old. We gave in a little earlier than we intended to. It was, two years old was the goal. But we reached a point on a vacation, a family vacation, that we were just all exhausted and needed something. So we put on a screen and let her watch a movie about an octopus. Um, and from there, so she only uses small screens. She only uses my phone to call her grandparents. And every once in a while, if Kyle and I are out to dinner, if our family's out to dinner, and we have something really important that we need to talk about, that we just need, or we're out with like with other adults that we need to have like just a moment, but she's with us. Occasionally we will let her watch TV on the screen, but like that's it. No like playing games. No, so she's allowed to watch like a cartoon on the TV or on the screen. She does not do any games on my phone. She has an old iPad with very limited capacity that is really frustrating for me, but I also appreciate because it means it's limited for what I can actually put on. And so she's got a few games that are like not like dopamine driving games. They're like learning games that she can play. Um, and then
Mhm.
like shows that she can watch on like TV or whatever, like Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever that we download. It is not connected to internet unless we turn it on. It is not connected to cellular at all. And she does not get it unless we are on a plane or a very long car ride. That's it. And we do allow her TV at home, but my kid is a dopamine seeker and she can become a TV monster if we let her have too much. So it's limited and we keep her busy in like physical activities because she's also a wiggly kid. So basically on weeknights, there's no TV. We don't allow any TV before lunch on weekends because we don't want to, like, once she gets going, she's going to want to stay there for the most part. So we allow TV. She's not alone when she's watching TV, and we have like limited times that she watches it. And she doesn't have access to anything, any of the screens or anything like that on her own. That will change as she gets older. I'm dealing with a 5-year-old who um, has had screen restrictions since she was born. So that's where I'm at with her. For me, I work really hard at not like I've my latest trick for anybody who wants this, because the worst place that I am for screens is if I'm like in bed, if I get into bed and I mess with my screen at all, it's not a good idea. It's bad things are going to happen. I recently put on something that I found like just for protection from my phone for where you can make it so that certain apps require Face ID, at least on iPhone. You can require Face ID to even be able to open the app. And that is brilliant because guess what? If I am laying in my bed at night, it can't see my face. So I can't access it. And it's not something that you can like enter in the number. You have to see the face. Oh my gosh, that was the most brilliant thing ever because I put it on all the things that are problematic and also the things that I want to protect. So, like if somebody were to steal my phone, but anything that's problematic for me to protect myself from it, so I can't access it, like I have to get out of bed and find enough light to be able to
Yeah.
do it. And so I have to make the active choice that it is worth the risk for me at
Yeah.
night. Um,
I feel like you've done a whole lot of things right, and I'm at the other end of the spectrum. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's like all the things you should be doing and not how I did it at all," me too. Um, I had good boundaries before PANS,
mhm.
and then PANS happened and boundaries went by the wayside because they had to for a while. And I have spent many years trying to backtrack on that, and I still don't do a great job of it all of the time. Um, I try to do my best with it. But it's still, again, I feel like it's something that we're constantly fighting, but I'm never like, I don't know why I have to revisit this. It's my own discipline. Um, every single time we revisit pulling back on screens, I see things that were problematic in life become a whole lot less problematic. And I see my kids flourish in ways that they don't whenever they're spending too much time on screens. And so again, I just say that if you haven't ever considered that screens might be a contributing factor, think about that.
Did you
And
cold turkey? Like what, like how did you do it? How, when you have made those decisions? That's what I'm wanting to know. Like what are your current boundaries? And yeah.
so the most recent one was because my girls are old enough, they're 12 and 14 now. I just talked to them and I explained to them what screen addiction looks like. And I took ownership for my part in it. And I explained to them some of the things in their world that are likely impacted by screens and just the arguing, the disrespectful behavior, the not interacting with each other, stuff like that. Um, and then I just explained to them that we were going to have boundaries around it. And so they get an hour and a half whenever they get home from school. They can unwind, they can do their thing, they can play on the screens. And then we put our screens down and we come out and we interact as a family. We take care of our business, whatever we need to take care of. I still allow them if their friends are on because it's typically, especially with Avery, her friends get on like 8 o'clock, like 8 to 9 o'clock, and they'll chat with each other and they'll play a game. And I'm okay with that because that's how she connects. But outside of that, we don't need to be going back to the computer or the iPad all of the time. We don't need to come out and eat and then go back to the iPad. And my younger one, it's a little bit more difficult with her. But it's just getting her to separate from her little screen that she has and not allowing her to have it all the time. And I just enforce that. And it's hard because they want it, they still, because
Yeah.
we're kind of still coming out of it. But and I think, with a PANS kid, it's different, but also it's necessary once you get far enough in because it's likely part of the problem.
What do you do for yourself with screen boundaries? Do you have
You know
any?
what? I used to not be really good with screen boundaries. Like, I think when all of the whenever I stopped doing my own personal Facebook stuff, and TikTok came out, like I was kind of in love with old lady TikTok, like my cooking and my cleaning and my gardening videos. I was loving it. And I spent some time in that. And then one day I read an article about missing like it was something about the mom that's looking down,
Mhm.
and it was explaining like this mom looking down through her children's childhood and missing so many moments because they were looking down. I've also seen I have been close with someone who went through screen addiction and I saw what that looked like too. And so I feel like those two things I don't have a problem with it anymore. But like you said, I have to be careful. Like if I allow myself to open TikTok of an evening, I'm going to be sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour looking at it instead of sleeping. I think it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I got the social media ick after some time, and was just done with it. I just have to not open it, because that's, it draws you in and it's like claws in you and you can't get away from it.
Right. It's different, like how you engage, right? Like, are you engaging with like mindless distraction or are you engaging and connecting with people? And like that matters too. But
And maybe that's it because having this group showed me a different type of, because that's like my screen time.
hmm hmm
And I don't really need it. I think that's it because like the rest of it was mindless and not necessarily a representation of the real world.
Mhm.
And I kind of got tired of that. And
Mhm.
so I prefer to, if I'm in front of a screen, to be interacting in our Facebook group or whatever. And the rest of the time, I want to be with my family.
Right.
So,
The last thing that I will say is the reason I bring up how I'm managing screens for myself and ask Jody how she's managing screens for herself too, is that there's been plenty of kids that I've worked with that parents are working on this because they've recognized, and like we've talked about um, screen addiction and screens as an obstacle. And they're the kid who's being told screens aren't good for you, you need to put them down, by a parent who's looking at their screen and they're getting mad and they're bringing it up.
mhm,
And so I think it's important to recognize that we have to look at our own screen habits
mhm.
as we're trying to enforce them, especially with the older kids. But even like my kid, like she is able to say, like, if one of us is looking at a screen too much, she'll be the first actually to call. She'll say screens aren't good for you. We don't do screens at the table, or we don't do screens with whatever. So I mean, I guess I should be grateful she's listening to us.
Feel like we all need a little Zephyr in our lives.
I mean, yes, she
It's
is.
like a little adult.
She is a little ray of sunshine in a lot of ways, except when she has too much time on the TV, because then she turns into a TV monster and it's a whole thing. All right, this was longer than I expected it to be, but apparently we had a lot to say and a lot of things that are just really important to acknowledge. So to wrap it up, our hearts go out to you, regardless of where you're at on this spectrum with screens. And if you've got ideas, like if things have worked for you, like we would love to hear what's been
Yeah.
working for you, tools and tricks and everything, because we don't have all the answers for this. So if there's something that's been really helpful for you to help with the transitions, we would love to hear it. So we can share it with our community. All right. Anything else, Jody?
Nope,
All right.
that's all.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys. We hope you found this episode helpful, hopeful, and inspiring. We would love to connect with you on social media and have you as part of our amazing community. You can find us on Facebook by searching for Homeopathy for Pans and Pandas.
If Facebook isn't your thing, you can also connect with us on Instagram and YouTube by searching for Resilience Naturopathic or clicking the links in our show notes. You can also visit our website, resiliencenaturopathic.com.
As always, we value your partnership in advocacy and education. Your support through following, sharing, rating, and reviewing our podcast is crucial in our mission to teach the world about PANS, PANDAS, and homeopathy. So if you found this podcast helpful, please leave us a review. Together, we are making a difference.
And finally, this podcast really is for you. Your questions and feedback help us make sure we are answering the right questions so you can feel confident making the next right step for your kids. Send us your questions or request guests by emailing us at podcast@resiliencenaturopathic.com, also linked in the show notes.